People think demolition is just the fun part of construction. They see clips of towers collapsing neatly into themselves, a cloud of dust, a cheer from the crowd behind the safety line. They don't see the months of calculations, the arguments with inspectors, the endless measurements to make sure you're only breaking what you intend to break. I'm a demolition engineer. My job is to know exactly how a building will fall before the first wall comes down. I read structural drawings the way some people read biographies. Every beam, every slab, every column is a sentence in the life of a structure. If you misread one, somebody dies. So when I say that this building should have been ordinary, you'll understand why what happened still bothers me. On paper, it was a mid-rise apartment block. 20 floors. 2 stairwells. A flat roof. Nothing special. The company I work for had been hired by the new owner. The building had been flagged as a headache in every department. Maintenance. Risk. Occupancy. Complaints. It was cheaper to knock it down and start fresh than keep patching its problems. I got the call after the sale closed. "We've got an old one on your side of town," my manager said. 20 stories, stripped of tenants, utilities mostly cut. "You'll get your preliminary package tonight." I opened the email that evening. The subject line was routine. But one note in the body made my eyes narrow. Previous risk assessment identifies anomalies in stairwell between levels 19 and 20, it said. Recommended full rebuild of stair core if retained. Owner elected full demolition instead. Anomalies. That was a polite way of saying the building refused to behave like its own drawings. I clicked the attachments. The structural plans were older scans layered with more recent annotations. Original design. Reinforced concrete frame. Central corridor. Stairs at both ends. 20 levels, numbered 1 through 20. Roof slab. Mechanical penthouse never built. I checked the vertical section through stair A. The flights were drawn neatly. Risers, treads, mid-landing, floor landing. Between 18 and 19, everything looked normal. Between 19 and 20, there was a small clouded area in red, with a note. Landing adjustment, see site sketch. No sketch attached. I scrolled down. There was a later structural note, stamped with a different engineer's seal. Field modification accepted. As-built stair geometry to govern. Which meant someone had changed the stairs during construction, and the drawings had given up trying to keep up. I've seen that before. It's messy, but manageable. You measure the real thing. You ignore the paper. The more interesting part was in the demolition survey from our own team. They had sent a junior to walk the skeleton once the building cleared. His report was short. Interior finishes largely removed. Some units show water damage. Stair B normal. Stair A between 19 and 20 feels longer than drawn. Counting steps gives inconsistent totals. Recommend laser scan for accurate model. Feelings don't go into demolition models. Distances do. I requested the scan. Modern demolition doesn't always rely on gut instinct and chalk marks. We send crews with tripod-mounted scanners that paint the building in dots of light. The result is a point cloud. Millions of coordinates that, when stitched together, show every surface as a ghostly three-dimensional snapshot. I loaded the scan into our modeling software. The building appeared in shades of gray on my screen. Facade. Columns. Slabs. Stairs. I rotated the model and sliced a vertical section through stair A. From lobby to 18, the level-to-level heights matched the drawings. Between 18 and 19, there was a slight deviation, with intolerance. Between 19 and 20, the cloud thickened. The distance between the finished floor of 19 and the underside of the slab of 20 was wrong. Wrong in this case meant not what the original drawing said. Not what later documents said. Not what gravity usually tolerates without an explanation. It was as if there was more space than a simple stairwell could account for. The software did what it always does with ambiguous data. It tried to snap it into something it understood. A faint horizontal band appeared in the section, halfway between 19 and 20. My cursor labeled it automatically. Intermediate plane, unassigned. I checked the scan source. There was no explicit slab there. No obvious platform. Just a cluster of points where the scanner had bounced off something that wasn't supposed to be there. I told myself it was noise. Scan artifacts happen. Dust in the air, reflective surfaces, a misplaced tripod. I removed the intermediate plane and forced the model to recalculate. It complied. For a moment. Then the software suggested, in a polite little tooltip. Warning, vertical mass distribution inconsistent. Consider adding intermediate constraint. I closed the file and decided I'd feel better after walking the real stairs. We always do a pre-demolition walkthrough. Even if the building has been scanned and measured, you can't replace the feel of concrete under your boots. I met the site foreman at the fence line on a cold, bright morning. He was a broad-shouldered man with a sunburned neck and permanent squint. "Name's Ortiz," he said, shaking my hand. "We've stripped 9 floors so far. The top 10 are down to slab and columns." He pointed up. The building looked like someone had taken a giant knife and peeled off its skin. On the upper levels, the exterior cladding was gone. Bare columns and floor plates were exposed to the sky. You could see through the rooms that used to hold lives. Patches of different paint. Holes where cabinets had hung. "We're working our way down," he said. "You'll see we've left the stair cores alone for now. You tell us where we can start chewing." We put on hard hats and climbed the temporary scaffolding to the roof. Standing on the top slab, with nothing between me and the city but rebar and air, I always feel a little like I'm walking on the ghost of the building rather than the building itself. "Stair B first?" Ortiz asked. "Sure," I said. "Let's get a baseline." We walked down stair B from 20 to the lobby. Concrete treads. Metal handrails. Dust. My count and the drawings agreed. No weirdness. Then we crossed the lobby to stair A. The door resisted when Ortiz pushed it. "Frame's a little warped," he said. "Seesaws when the heat's on." He shouldered it open. Inside, the air felt cooler. No reason for it, both stairwells were open to the same outside temperature now. We started from the roof and walked down. From 20 to 19 felt normal enough. Dustier. More echoes. At the 19th floor landing, I stepped out to glance at the gutted hallway. Bare studs. Exposed conduits. Someone had spray-painted arrows along the ceiling to indicate future cuts. When I stepped back into the stair, something in my internal sense of distance shifted. We descended. My boot hit step after step. The noise echoed off stripped concrete. Between flights, there should have been one mid-landing. I counted 2. The first was as expected. The second felt, tacked on. Its surface color was slightly different, a shade darker, as if poured at a different time. On the wall at that landing, a remnant of paint showed where a small sign had once been bolted. Only the outline remained. The anchor holes in the concrete were empty. Someone had spray-painted a new level marker nearby in orange. 20. Over it, in a different color, a second hand had written in smaller characters. 20/21. Then scratched it out. "Your guys do that?" I asked, pointing. Ortiz frowned. "Not mine," he said. "We mark cuts and demo zones, not floor numbers. Those should come from the drawings." "Maybe from a previous crew," I said. Except there hadn't been a previous demolition crew. Just maintenance people, inspectors, and cleaners. I made a note. We continued down. By the time we reached 18, I felt like I had gone down one flight too many. My count on the steps said one thing. My muscles said another. I've learned not to ignore my muscles. Dash. Back at the side trailer, I updated the model with my field notes. The software adjusted the mass distribution again. From the top down, the building looked like 20 flat layers. Structurally fine. From the bottom up, with the stair anomalies considered, the solver added a small correction factor between 19 and 20. An invisible weight. Something in between. You're overthinking it, I told myself. This thing is coming down in one go anyway. Still, we don't usually bring dynamite into situations we don't fully understand. The owner's representative came by that afternoon. A woman in a sharp coat and a hard hat that looked like it was being worn for the first time. "We're on schedule?" she asked. "So far," I said. "Interior strip out is ahead of plan. Structural cuts can start once we finalize the fall pattern." "And that's," she prompted. "An art show with math," I said. "We weaken specific columns, cut strategic beams, then use gravity and, if necessary, carefully placed charges to persuade the building to collapse into its own footprint. We'd prefer not to surprise the neighboring properties." She smiled thinly. "We've had enough surprises from this address already," she said. "If you need anything extra to make sure this one stays down, let us know." I looked at the printout of the risk report tucked into my folder. It mentioned complaints about stairs. Mysterious 21st floor camera labels. A tenant who never seemed to check out. I closed the folder. "We're fine," I said. "We just treat every anomaly as extra weight." The next week was a blur of noise and dust. Concrete saws screamed through floor slabs where we needed to pre-cut. Jackhammers chewed channels in column capitals to prepare them for controlled failure. Excavators with long arms and steel jaws took bites out of the top floors like a giant animal gnawing at a carcass. Floor 20 vanished first. Its walls went. Its rooms became piles of rubble on the floor plate, then chunks in steel bins. When the last perimeter wall came down, the edge of the slab stood naked against the air. From the street, you could see directly into stair A. The stair flights clung to the sliced open wall, spiraling down into the guts of the building. I stood at a safe distance and looked through my binoculars. The exposed stair between 19 and 20 looked wrong. Not structurally. Structurally, it was fine. But the shadows on the landings didn't match the light. On the top exposed flight, the sun lit each step cleanly. On the mid-landing below, the light seemed to bend, as if something unseen above it was casting a shape that wasn't there. "Optical illusion," I muttered. Ortiz walked up beside me. "You see it too?" he asked. I didn't answer. He spat into the dust and squinted up. "We cut 20 clean," he said. "There shouldn't be anything left to cast that kind of shadow." I zoomed the binoculars. On the wall at the mid-landing, just below where the concrete had been sliced, I could see a faint rectangular mark in a lighter shade of old paint. In the center of that ghost rectangle, the cleaner outline of a number plate. Someone had once bolted 21 there. It had been removed. But the concrete remembered. Our final plan used a combination of mechanical demolition and assist charges. We would weaken the lower levels, then let the top heavy mass pancake. If you hit the right columns in the right order, the building folds like a tired accordion. Too fast, and it shatters sideways. Too slow, and parts stay standing that you'd rather not. I fed the model our cut locations. The software simulated the collapse. On the first run, the fall vector looked clean. Then the simulation engine flashed a small warning. Unaccounted mass between levels 19 and 20 in stair A core. Results may be unreliable. It offered a suggestion. Assign intermediate constraint or ignore. We have a joke in this line of work. When in doubt, trust gravity. Gravity doesn't care about your settings. I tried assigning a nominal intermediate constraint. A fake floor, just to make the engine happy. The model redrew. The building still fell, but differently. The stair core in stair A twisted a fraction before collapsing. On the replay, there was a split second where an extra horizontal band hung in the middle of the dust cloud before disintegrating. I ran the simulation without the constraint. The engine sulked, but it ran. The result was almost the same. An extra blip of color between 19 and 20. Like a floor trying to appear in the math. I saved both versions and marked my notes. Stair A core behavior uncertain. Recommend additional monitoring. Ortiz shrugged when I told him. We'll put extra cameras on that side, he said. If it wants to do something weird, we'll catch it on film. Demolition day was clear and cold. The side perimeter was expanded. Streets around the block were closed. A few curious onlookers gathered behind the barriers, phones ready. The local news had a camera truck parked at a safe distance. Inside the command trailer, we watched a wall of monitors. Each showed a different angle. Street level. Roof line. Neighboring roofs. We had additional cameras mounted to look straight at stair A's exposed side. Sensors on key columns waited to send their last data before going offline forever. I walked through the checklist with Ortiz. All charges set and tested, he said. Weakening cuts complete. Safety perimeter clear. No one inside. I checked my own box. Structural review complete, I said. Collapse path modeled. Risks noted. On the screen, the building stood like a stripped skeleton. In stair A, the exposed flights were clearly visible, empty concrete steps spiraling down. For a moment, as the morning sun shifted, I thought I saw a shadow move on the mid-landing between 19 and 20. As if someone was standing just out of sight. I blinked. Nothing there. Ready on your mark, Ortiz said. The owner's representative was in the trailer too. She nodded to me. Whenever you're satisfied, she said. That was the thing. I wasn't satisfied. But we were as ready as we were going to be. I turned to the blast tech. On my count, I said. He put his hand on the detonator. 3, I said. 2. I looked at the screen showing stair A one last time. 1. He pressed the switch. A series of sharp flashes popped at the base of the building, like distant camera flashes. You don't hear the sound in real time from the control room, you see it first. Columns buckled. Dust and concrete spalled out. Microseconds later, the shockwave boomed through the ground, even where we were. The building shuddered. The top floors, already weakened, began to drop. On the monitors, the structure folded in on itself just as we'd planned. Floor plates slammed into each other. Perimeter walls crumpled inward. A plume of dust bloomed outward, hitting the preset water curtains and turning into thick, gray rain. In the chaos of movement, the eye catches strange things. In the feed focused on stair A, I saw the stair core collapse. But for one impossible frame, there was something else. An extra horizontal band hung in the air between where 19 and 20 should have been. It looked like a thin slice of corridor, doors on either side, lit in a flat, sickly light. Then it was gone, swallowed by the falling concrete. Replay that, I said, leaning forward. The tech rewound the feed and played it back in slow motion. The building fell. The stairs tore free. Dust roared. But the frame I thought I'd seen wasn't there. Just gray, collapsing, in sequence. See something? Ortiz asked. Maybe, I said. Maybe not. My chest felt tight. The building was now a low, jagged mound filling its own footprint. Nothing left standing. At least, nothing you could see. Post-demolition review is as important as the planning. We analyze drone footage. We check that debris didn't blow the wrong way. We confirm that nothing next door cracked or slumped. In the edit room later that week, I went frame by frame through the Stair A footage. The camera's metadata stamped each image with time down to the millisecond. At timestamp T plus 2.74 seconds, the floors between 17 and 20 were folding into each other. At T plus 2.75, there was a blur. At T plus 2.76, it was just dust. I exported those frames and enhanced them. You can only pull so much from compressed video, but something was there. In the blur, pixel ghosts suggested parallel lines and right angles where there should have been only fragments. I imagined a hallway that had never been on the plans. A corridor that existed only long enough to fall with the building that pretended not to have it. I saved the stills and labeled them. Artifact, Stair A collapse, 19 to 20 region. I could have filed them under visual noise and moved on. Instead, I printed one and slipped it into my notebook. A week after the dust settled, we started hauling debris. Excavators loaded crushed concrete and twisted rebar into trucks. The footprint shrank day by day as the pile got lower. On one of my visits, Ortiz waved me over. "You're going to love this," he said. He led me to the edge of the excavation, where a worker had set aside something that didn't belong in the shapeless rubble. It was a slab of concrete about the size of a door. On one face, you could still see layers of paint from the stairwell. 2 screw holes near the top indicated where a sign had once been. Bolted to the slab with stubborn, bent fasteners was a small, metal number plate. 21. That number should have been removed years ago when the building decided it only had 20 floors. It certainly shouldn't have survived the collapse intact. "You want it for your office," Ortiz joked. I didn't. I also didn't want it ending up in some salvage yard. "Tag it," I said. "Put it aside with the samples. I'll figure out where it needs to go." He shrugged and had one of the crew carry it to the temporary storage container where we kept things that might interest lawyers or insurers. Later, when I went to the container to log it properly, the slab wasn't there. The inventory sheet, freshly printed that morning, had a line item. Stair A signed slab, 21, placed in bin 4. Bin 4 was empty. No one admitted to moving it. No one signed it out. It had just left. Like it had somewhere else to be. The site is a hole in the ground now. Foundations chipped away, soil compacted, temporary fencing humming in the wind. The new project's billboards show a glassy tower that will someday rise here. 20 floors. They're very specific about that. Sometimes I drive past after work. I tell myself I'm checking on ground stability, or nearby structures, or the progress of utilities. If I park and turn off the engine, I can hear the faint echo of machines finishing what we started. One evening, as the sky was going from gray to black, I saw a small glow in the pit. A contractor's laptop, propped on a folding table near the edge. I walked over. No one was there. On the screen was a 3D model of the future building. A tidy stack of floors. Labeled L1, L2, L3. Up to L20. For a moment, as the cursor hovered near the middle, an extra thin line appeared between 19 and 20. No label. Just a suggestion of space. Then it flickered and was gone. The software politely refreshed the view. 20 floors. Clean. I closed the laptop and set it down. As I walked back to my truck, my phone buzzed with an email from our archive system. Subject, attached, final demolition report, building address. I opened it when I got home. The text was what I had written. Sequence descriptions. Safety outcomes. Debris volumes. At the end, in the section titled Unusual Observations, I had added a short note. Stair A core between levels 19 and 20 behaves anomalously in both model and observed collapse pattern. No residual structure remains above grade. No further action recommended. Below it, a line I did not remember typing. Intermediate plane unaccounted for. No period. No attribution. I checked the revision history. It listed only my name. I deleted the extra sentence and saved. The file closed with its usual confirmation. When I reopened it a minute later, the line was back. Same words. Same lack of punctuation. I laughed once, without humor, and closed it for good. I still design demolitions. I still trust gravity. But if you hand me a set of drawings for a building with 20 floors, and the stairs between 19 and 20 come with a history of complaints, and the models try to draw something in between, I add an extra page to my calculations. A page that accounts for things without names. I don't show it to the clients. I file it in a folder I keep in a locked drawer, labeled with projects whose stairwells refuse to match the plans. The folder I keep in my desk has a handwritten title now. Floor 21. This story is a work of fiction, created purely for entertainment. Any resemblance to real people, buildings, or events is purely coincidental.